In our Motherhood series, I am excited to bring you another guest who has battled with living in the expectations and the light that our parents set for us. How do we live in a space that is so defined and so filled with these is the path that you have to follow. These are the things that you have to do in order to define success, when really deep down in our hearts, we might want to follow a completely different path. Our guest today on the Thrive Forward podcast is Annie Vovan, and Annie is going to share with us her own journey of really transforming after she spent 12 years working in a career that was defined as successful by her parents, transitioning into a space that really followed her heart, served those around her, and more about her journey in motherhood and how that inspired her to be in the space that she is today, helping other mothers discover their true worth and their dreams and define them as worth living, and not waiting for them to find you, but really discovering them now and not waiting until when whatever that box is checked, whatever that thing is that you have, or when the kids get to that point, or when we're able to do this, then I will. No, now is the time and the opportunity for you to live in that space. And Annie and I discussed just that, how to take charge and be the woman that you were destined to become. So tune in. Annie, thank you so much for joining this episode of Thrive Forward. I'm happy to have you on this episode, joining us from sunny California. It's actually sunny here today, so I'm feeling a little Californian today.
You're welcome. I'm so excited. Thank you so much. I loved connecting with you from day one, and so this is just a pleasure. It's nice to have you as a girlfriend, just to talk about the reality of what it's like to be in this space right now in the season of life. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to dig in to all topics around business and being moms and the culture of the world that we live in and the challenges that we're experiencing right now. You and I have had many a deep conversation around some of these topics and sharing, and you've been just a great voice to have as a leader throughout these many conversations. And so can you give everybody a little bit of a background of how you got to the place that you are in right now today as a coach, but how you led to this space of expressing your own passion?
Well, I really feel that everybody can design a life that they love, right? And I would love to say that I was raised to go after the big dream and that you could do anything and honey, we'll be supportive of whatever. I was raised completely opposite. I was raised to go to medical school or how about you go to medical school? And out of my 7 siblings, 4 of us did go to medical school. And I found that, my parents were really passionate about safety and about being able to provide for yourself. We were an immigrant family. We arrived in 1975, all 9 of us, and that's what they knew. My dad was a pediatrician. He was a leader in his own space. He was chief of this hospital, and my mom was a pharmacist. And in Vietnam, pharmacists are considered primary care providers, so people who were community people. And so coming here and not having the language, the skills, the money, or anything, literally the shirts off our back, literally gold in our shoes, nothing to arrive. And, from refugee camp to being sponsored by 2 families to my dad redoing his residency at age 40 in Flint, Michigan.
Oh my goodness.
My mother being his office manager from the time he was able to open a practice, to doing hair and staying home and being in his office. And it wasn't until I was in junior high, so 14 years in being in America, that she recertified to be a pharmacist. So all that to say is that, me going away from that trajectory was very hard. How do I not follow my parents in what they did? Because that was security, and I think that the person that I was back then was so obedient that I was okay, you've given, how am I not going to repay you for these sacrifices that you made? But I also look at myself as, a 46-year-old, right? To say, I wish that I actually did stand up to them. And I guess my message is that, for parents out there who are displacing their dreams and goals for their kids, it could be actually really dangerous. Like, I think that me as a parent, I'm totally opposite of what my parents were, right? Like, I'm the co-op mom. My parents never went to anything. You know what I'm saying? And they did the best with what they had. And I think that once I got into pharmacy school, honestly, it was just a way out of the house. I didn't want to go to medical school. I seen my older siblings do it. But pharmacy, I said, I'm going to do this for 5 years. Here's the degree, mom and dad. Here's the doctorate. You can check me off that I made it under society, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in that space. But, 1 year led to 5 years, led to 10 years, led to 14 years in this job that I hated, absolutely hated. And unfortunately, I have this very concrete memory of being in pharmacy school for that first year and asking my dad, can I quit? And he said, well, if you want to send me and get a heart attack and send me to the hospital and, essentially kill me, go ahead. And so I think that for anyone listening from an immigrant family, like, that's real. That's a lot of fucking guilt
and pressure. Holy crap.
A lot of pressure. The two siblings that dodged pharmacy or medicine just couldn't stand the sight of blood. So they were out. One being an MBA engineer guy, and my sister's a financial analyst now, stay-at-home mom. And so in that, I started to realize that, being in a job that I really hated when I became a parent was just no longer okay. My son had a medical condition to which we couldn't put him in daycare. In fact, he had a lot of food allergies, dairy, eggs, nuts, sesame, avocado, to the touch. And I remember touring a Bright Horizons thinking, I'm just going to go back to the pharmacy because that's what I knew to do. And he came out in hives, and we're like, we just can't do this for our family. We need, we're going to have to figure this out. We were a 2-income family, so I didn't have the luxury to not bring in income. And so I had this kind of side hustle photography business at the time. And so I was like, well, shit, I'm going to bet on me. So anyway, I was in the lifestyle photography space, having sprung from that, being in the nonprofit space. I had been in a nonprofit for a dozen years, and it just kind of came upon me. I have a point, by the way. There is this whole thing that I want to answer your question.
I'm following.
But in the nonprofit space, photography chose me, right? Because I was the one sitting at the table. We're like, we're so poor. We have no money. We need to advertise. Who's going to take pictures of our camp? It was a camp for children with developmental disabilities. So it came to me. So pharmacy chose, like, it just kind of leaned on me. I had to pharmacy, and even photography in a way, like, I just did it because it was just kind of there, right? And then I found out I was pretty good at it, the photography part. And then the part of the coaching came in was when I chose coaching. I chose coaching after having, a little girl, and we hired a nanny that I had met at a park because we had just moved from a different part of LA into the South Bay. And I remember watching this woman who was incredible with this 6-year-old. My kid was 3. My other child was 3 or 2, not even 2. And I was just watching her, and she just was so good about following him wherever he went. Like, and when that little boy started talking to my little boy, she was just awesome. And I sat like 9 months pregnant or 8.5 months pregnant. I'm like, wow, are you his nanny? And she was like, yeah. I'm like, I'm looking for someone. How can I find someone who just is so loving? I've seen you just care for this boy, and I see you how you are with my kid. And she's just like, well, he's going to school. I'm going to be available. And it was just like the stars had aligned for us to bring Miranda and our family. And so Miranda joined our family, and about 1.5 years after she joined our family, my dad was going through some health issues, and he was declining, and he was in the ICU. And then my father-in-law all of a sudden had a massive heart attack. And all of a sudden, she was holding space for my family in a way that was just incredible. She was already working at another job. She was already working at Smart & Final, and she was there for my family again and again. And it was around the holidays of 2017. And then all of a sudden, she got really sick. And she ended up having meningitis, and she actually ended up passing away. And so all of a sudden, in that moment, in the year of 2017, 17, we had lost 8 people, and she was one of them. And to say that I got into coaching is kind of ridiculous to say that. But what I ended up doing was I started a community for moms, because Morena, our former nanny, she was 46 and she never was able to live out her dreams. I mean, she was single, and I was, always pressing her to take on these dates. And she kept telling me all she wanted was to see her son graduate college. So she put everything aside from him, and she never lived out her dreams. And I feel like in so much of what I have done with my community, it's always in her memory. Like, how do I get women to understand that you're not necessarily going to get that other chance? You don't have to wait till your kid goes to college. You don't have to wait until all these things. And so I had started Avenue Mama just as a place for mourning. I had gone through 2 miscarriages. I had, buried my nanny. There were 3 people in the ICU at one point in my life, and my cupboards were empty. And I was just like in such a place of hurt that this community of moms that I just put myself out there was kind of like my, lighthouse. Right. Mm-hmm. And so from there, I had never had any intention to start teaching or coaching whatsoever. But what I did know was that, for everything that I've done in the nonprofit space, even in the pharmacy space, I was a manager. I had led people, I had led teams. And I've always been the person who said that there's space for you at this table. I've always been that person. And one day my friend said, do you realize you are the table? That it's not only that you make space, but you actually are the table. And I just was like, wow. And then he's like, this is my best friend, Dustin. He's like, you have a way to get people to open up. And that's a true gift, and you should do something with it. Long story short, long story longer, Avenue Mama started becoming a place of workshops, self-love, self-care. And I got into that self-care part of my life because, damn it, I had seen people lose their lives earlier. I've seen people miss opportunities because they were scared. And so I started doing workshops, and there was a minute in my entrepreneur life that I had started event planning, and I would do these events anyway. So there was a big part of me that loved putting people together in a room and just creating space for vulnerability and honesty. So in that space of self-care, it started to be apparent to me that there were a lot of women who felt trapped at home or wanted to be home. And I was like, well, I started this event company. Well, I started this photography company. Maybe I can help you. So that's kind of how it led. I mean, if you asked me, 5 years ago, did I ever think I'd be in the space of business coaching with a dose of life coaching, if you think about it, because you can't, as a mother, you cannot look at a woman who's a mother starting a business and not speak to the fact of what she's got going on at home. So that's kind of how I got here in a way that I think is still new for me, it's still rather new, and I'm still learning, and I still have a lot to learn. But for what it's worth, I think it's important that moms who are listening, that you don't have to have everything perfect in order for you to create some financial stability for yourself. And you don't have to be a 7-figure entrepreneur overnight. You don't have to have anything other than the desire to make impact with what you have. If it's important to you and it helps somebody out in their life and whatever that way is, then why not? Why not start and put yourself out there in that space so that people can really benefit from your own genius. So.
Well, I think you do that, to reflect your words back on you, to make impact with what you do. That's huge, right? I think oftentimes we think of impact as impact for ourselves, but impact for others, impact for our families, impact for our communities. It's that word can be expressed in many different aspects of our lives. And everything is tied together. If everything was just in its own cubby, in its own space, then it wouldn't be life, but it's all commingled and tiled and tangled together. And so you're absolutely right that we can't ignore parts of us. Yeah. And I think as women, sometimes we feel like we have to, because we're natural nurturers and providers and caregivers. But really, it's that element of stepping into the space that is our own, which is allowing ourselves to live in our truth.
Yeah.
Go
If you
ahead.
think about, no, I was just thinking like, you ever seen a baby wanting to walk, right? Like there is no, like they are like they have that conviction to walk because no one's ever told them that they can't or they don't understand. And somewhere between being that baby with that much conviction to being the 30-year-old or 40-year-old, somebody told you along that way that you cannot do something and that you've listened and you've, for lack of like cliches all around, right? Like dimmed your light or played small. There's somebody that told you historically, and how can we undo that damage when you have something to offer? I'm not saying that every mom has to be in business. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're somebody that has an idea or has something that they want to pursue, like I'm here to say, yes, you can, right? Not everybody wants that. But I think that what I've learned is that there's always that inner critic and a true critic in your life that has made you feel less than. And it sucks. And we shouldn't have to deal with that, right? It's actually their own issue.
Yeah.
Really.
Projectile, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was going to start my business, and I love my brother. He's like my biggest cheerleader, but he was like, are you sure? Like, you want to give up your corporate job to start your own business? You're really sure you want to do this? And I was like, yes, I'm really sure I want to have something of my own. I'm really sure I want to make impact in my own way. I'm really sure, like, this is not something that I just dreamt up. It was a 2-year process, honestly, for me to come to a space where I knew this was what I wanted to do.
I think regret is such the hard thing too, right? If you were to survey people at a nursing home, right? I think at the end of the day, they wish they would have. And it's not necessarily a business. Let's just talk about dreams and goals.
Right.
People sit around forever waiting for the right time or the right permission. And unfortunately, you have to want it yourself and take action to do that. And it's dreams and goals like shouldn't go and get dust piled on them, especially for moms, right? So I think that it's just something. It's just kind of my mission. It's just like, what are those dreams and goals that are like on that back burner? How can we bring it to the front burner? How can we get it out there? Because you deserve to have something of your own as well. Like just because you're mom doesn't mean everything disappears and that you have to be everything to everyone.
Yeah, I see that a lot with so I work with clients at different stages in their lives, right? And new moms who are just kind of, stepping into that space and they're still struggling with like, who am I? And like now I'm responsible for this human who needs me to change their diapers and feed them. And my body no longer feels like it is my own. And then, moms of teenagers or moms of young children, and then moms of grown adults. I see all of these different stages with these women who have, for the majority of it, sacrificed something because along the way we were told that motherhood meant sacrifice.
Yeah. And I think what's really interesting, I don't know if you've had a lot of response and I don't know if it's trauma or joy or enlightenment. When you think about how you were mothered, a lot of things come up, they rise to the top because all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh. So on one hand, I'm grateful for certain things that, my mom taught me. But on the other hand, there's a handful of things that I don't want to bring into the way that I mother. And it's really interesting that what you had just said, because I had a conversation with my mom recently, I would say in the last month, where she really does not want me to have any kind of hardship, which I understand. But she's also like, why do you think you can, right? Like it's so interesting. It's really fascinating. I have a sister that's in the entrepreneurial space too. And she's like, why do you think you can compete with white people? Why do you think your voice matters? Like, this is a message I'm getting to this day. And it's so interesting. And I get it. It's because of her comfort line. It's her feeling like, if I have this daughter that is out there being too vocal. It was after I had posted a Facebook thing over the summer with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. And she called me to say, stop it. Stop using your voice. And it's so interesting to, parenting is just so multifaceted, right? But it's so interesting to still try to like be okay and love her, but
Mhm.
also be really upset that that's her mindset, and yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, I think it's just really interesting. And I just have to take inventory. I just have to understand and relate where she is and what that's about, and not need her acknowledgement if I chose to not be a pharmacist anymore. We had this conversation 2 weeks ago where I said, you know, I think when you pass, Mom, I'm going to know that you've loved me, like you love me, but I know you're not proud of me. And it was just a shitty conversation if I'm being real with you. And she was just like, and I said, you were more proud of me when I was a pharmacist, huh? And she was like, yeah. So, what do I do with that? I just go, I'm not going to like listen to you, and I'm not doing this for you. I've done a lot for you already,
Yeah.
so.
I wonder if that is from that element of this like falsity of what the American dream is, right?
Oh, sure.
And that aspect of, I actually have like the flip side of it. And of course, it's the white American version of things,
Yeah.
but I was also raised by hippie artists.
Mm.
So when I went to college and said, I'm going to go into finance, they were like, who the hell are
That's
you?
so interesting. You did turn it on its head. Yeah.
Who
Right.
are you?
Yeah.
And mine was like your mom, that element of wanting safety and security
Yeah.
and not wanting to experience what my parents had experienced from financial struggle and lack of independence when it came to, finances. And it was the flip flop. Now, my best friend growing up is the daughter of Hmong refugees.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked that walk with her where there were, very strong expectations of what she should be doing with her life as well. And it was almost this flip side journey that we experienced. And I don't think that people necessarily recognize the pressure that's associated beyond just as a woman, but as a woman of color. And then as a woman who is a daughter of immigrants and is a woman of color. Like there are so many
Yeah.
layers to that, right?
Yeah. Of course. That's a really unique perspective that you share. And I get it. It's security. Like, am I going to shame my mom saying, "How dare you want me to have security?" No, that doesn't make any sense. I actually took a fifth year in college to study education because I wanted to either be a social worker or a fifth grade teacher. And they were like, "That's cool, but we need someone to take over the family business." My mom just sold her pharmacy this summer. And there was a lot of pressure to be that person to fill that gap because, the three brothers and the sister that was in medicine, they weren't going to be able to take on the pharmacy. And listen, there's a lot of great things that came out of having that run as a pharmacist. Um, Yesterday I actually did some records reconciliation for the sale of her pharmacy, and I'm glad I could step in and do that. I'm glad that I'm going to get training to hopefully put vaccines in people's arms. I'm like waiting for that date to come because I can do that.
Yeah.
So, so there've met some people, obviously. I wouldn't be married if my ex-roommate's sister didn't introduce us. So there's that. But I think my overarching message is that life is so short to put your dreams in this box where it never gets lived out, right?
Mhm.
And so maybe in one way or the other, the dream of being a teacher is manifested for me in Avenue Mama. I just made that connection right here.
I could not agree with that more.
Slash social work, right? It's just,
Yeah. It's a different element of being able to help people that
mhm,
we weren't necessarily told was an option for us,
yeah, yeah.
right? That's kind of actually how I stumbled onto the financial industry because I went to college actually with the notion that I was going to be like Elle Woods and be an attorney. I
Yeah.
know, so cliche. Then I took one law class and I was like, whoa, you people are really boring. Um, Shout out to all my friends who are attorneys. I love you, but there's just something different. um, and so I met with my advisor and I was like, I just really want to help people. Like, that's what I want to do.
Hmm.
And she was like, well, what about wealth management? And I was like, help people get more rich. Like that does not feel like a space that I'm in or, qualified for. I don't have any money. Like, how would I ever be able to like help people with their money? So it was an interesting journey for me to be able to go into that space and then live in that space where I still was very different. I was not a financial advisor, protege, box type of person. And before we hit record, you and I were talking about this box that society puts us in. And for me, I knew being in the industry that I was like, this feels icky. I don't want to be what everybody else is expecting me to be. I want to be different. And I do want to express my artsy fartsy side of it, me that like my parents are. I want to express my creativity. I want to give a platform to other people. I want, there's this wealth gap. Do you know about the wealth gap? Do you know about socially responsible investing? Like I would ask these questions and they would be like, why are you talking? Stop. Why are you asking questions? Just go with the flow. Why are you stirring the pot? And so it's that element of not being afraid to challenge either and look outside that box. How have you felt you've kind of sprung and flown outside of that box now?
I just stopped caring about other people's opinions. I don't know if it comes with age, to be honest. In my 20s, yeah, I definitely feel there was such a huge like people pleaser element. The best way I can describe it is high school reunions, right? Like,
oh my God, I love this.
When I went to my 20-year, I'm sorry, when I went to my 10-year, I was dating this asshole. But I was like, but you're coming with me because I ain't showing up without a man on my arm. And, and I had a career going, whatever. But yet at the expense of not being myself because I wanted to be recognized as somebody who wasn't like not married and not have kids, right? You're 28 at the time. And then when I went to my 20-year high school union, it was just like everybody just didn't care anymore. Like now we're like 38, right? Everyone's like, I've been to jail or I've been divorced twice. And you're like, bring it in. You just stop caring. You just stop caring because you realize that like we all mess up. No one is perfect. We're all just trying to do our best. And so in a couple years, I'll be going to my 30-year high school reunion. And so I think I just stopped needing the acknowledgement, especially when I was pivoting in a space that I felt was really in line with what I wanted to do. Like I opened an Etsy shop with an I'm speaking shirt, right? Like 2 days after the vice presidential debate, because I had made one just with like an iron on. I was like, I like these 2 words. And I showed it to my mom friends. They're like, will you make me one? And I was like, okay. I had no business opening an Etsy shop in a pandemic. But I did it because I felt like it was important to me. And that was enough, right? For all you mamas who want to start an Etsy shop, it was important and it was enough. And I just figured it out. I started a podcast because I felt like I loved listening and I'm multitasking and I can get a lot of content that way. And I started my daughter's 10 and I YouTube the whole thing and I try to figure it out. Hey, it's not perfect. And you know what? I haven't even posted podcasts in months. But at the same time, this is what I want women to know. It's okay. There's no like internet god that's going to grade you and be saying, you know what? And you say you're a podcaster, but you haven't done shit in 3 months. I've just gotten to that point in my life where I'm like, I'm doing the best that I can. We've gone through an insurrection. We're going through Asian hate right now. We're going through so much right now. We're still in a pandemic, right? Like, I'm okay, girl. I'm okay. And if you want to judge me for that, that's on you. Like, that's cool. But over here, we're in murky waters and we're cool. And we could start an Etsy shop if we want. We could we could have been a pharmacist and still kind of be in that space, whatever. Or we could podcast. Like, who's to say that you can't be multifaceted? Who's to say that? Like, who is the internet god that's going to come down and say, I don't know.
Stay in your lane. I don't know. You're swerving here.
Yeah. And so, but what I will say though, if we're speaking about business and launching, I do think you need to pick the one thing first. And what I say to my students is you can put your other dreams in this little drawer and look at them, but let's focus on getting you so that you're clear and you can make more strides if we focus on one of your dreams, and then we'll revisit the next. So that's what I'll say, because I think that changed me before, where I was like, I want to pursue everything at the same time. And what helped me was when I focused more on just, I really want to help moms. Like someone asked me the other day, is your business coaching for everyone? I was like, it's really for moms. It's really for moms. It's just something that I feel really passionate about. And so, yeah.
Well, and I think the element of, I hear you on the business side of things, and you've helped me along in that perspective too. But I would also say the passions that you have for your Etsy shop and your podcast are passions. It doesn't have to be a revenue stream producer aspect of things,
No.
right? And I think a lot of times we're, my best friend started doing signs. Like you started doing Etsy shop. She started doing wood signs. And she was like, well, do you think that I should turn it into a business? And I said, do you want it to be a business? Don't ask me what I think you should do. Like, of course, I'm going to look at it from a business perspective and I'm going to start crunching numbers and be like, you could make this or blah, 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 blah. That's my financial brain. You have to, at the end of the day, say like, is this a hobby or this is something that I actually really want to do in passion every day of my life?
Yeah, and business looks different for everybody. There are plenty of moms that want that extra $500 a month. 1,000, 1,500, 5,000. And it's just knowing what it is that you're going for so that you have that expectations of, for when people start coming at you, you could just be like, this is the plan where I'm going to be in a space of this trajectory of this month and all that, and I think it's just, people feel like that, your dreams aren't worth pursuing has nothing to do with that person. It's really that person, the other person being really scared. And maybe with that heart to protect this other person, but as entrepreneurs, we don't want to be protected. In fact, we're already our worst critics. You don't need to point it out because I'm already feeling it. So how about you just like either be quiet or just go along for the ride or just not take away from what it is that I'm trying to do here,
Yeah, I think that is, I've never felt more welcomed than in a circle with a bunch of female entrepreneurs, in all honesty. I came from a space where it was constant competitive nature, rankings. This is where you are. This is where you have, where you have to be somebody. And now being in a space of entrepreneurialism and even in the financial industry, being an individual business owner, I've never felt more support because there's not that competitive element is removed and everyone's kind of at that same space that it doesn't matter what the size of your business is. We're all in the same fight of finding our passion and changing lives and making a solid go at it for our own selves.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, well, what if I go out and I fail? Like if I just fall on my face. I'm not like the type of person that likes to fail. So that was like really scary for me more than anything. Mm-hmm. And I was like, then I just go back and I get a corporate job.
Yeah.
Like I just go back. But that regret aspect won't be there because I've tried it.
Right.
And little do I know, 14 months later after launching my business, in the last 6 months, my business has doubled in size. And I get to do the things that I love to do every single day. Right. Yeah. And so it's that belief in ourselves to do the things that we never thought were possible either.
Right.
I'm curious as how you think the mass exodus of women during COVID because of work environments is going to affect some of these changes and how you've maybe seen some of that with your business and people launching, because we know there are more women that lost jobs due to layoffs in the time during COVID in 2020. And I think we'll start to see some real fallout from that. What's your thought process around that? What do you look at that element?
Yeah, I mean, a huge subset of those folks are parents, and the breaking point was who is going to stay home with the children, right? Like, it's not even staying home with your children; it's staying home with your children in a pandemic because there is no daycare, there is no nanny, or not no, but there are fewer options for that. And so I hope that women will give themselves permission if they want. Not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but there are ways to recover and create financial income just by being in the online space, and really just embracing that there is opportunity there, especially if your paycheck was such a part of the family, right? So I think the online, because you're home, because a lot of us are home now, and because the children require different, it's just like, I was thinking, we never let anyone drive our children anyway, because I've already been at home, but like, how does that affect for the folks that like really want to create something new? And there's so many challenges about that, right? So it's really leaning into the online space and really trying to see if there's something out there that is for you. It may not be starting a business, but it may be having to look onto the online space to support another person's business. I think it's really unfortunate that, a lot of this has fallen on women, and it's we haven't seen it pan out yet. We will, and even our kids are not 100% back in school, but it's unfair.
It absolutely is incredibly unfair. And I think that the part of it that scares me a little bit is I feel like if women don't take action around it, it is going to take us back from, I look at it again from a financial standpoint, but from, an equal pay aspect of things. Many of those women were taking opportunities to be at home. Many of them were making the choice because maybe they wanted to, but a lot of it was because they were making the lower income. And so their partner was the one that was making the majority of the income. So they ended up staying, right?
Yeah.
And so I look at it as an opportunity. I have a friend of mine who has a business called Bus Stop Mamas. And it is we'll have her on the podcast at some point in time too, but she started a business because she said, there's women that want to be able to put their kids on the bus and pick them up from school, and they want to work during that period of time. Right. And I'm on a walk with my husband the other day, and I was like, I think I only want to work from like 10 until 3. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I think like I just want to work from 10 until 3. Like that's probably the time of day I'm most productive and I get stuff done. That's when I think I want to work. And he was like, you are just going to create that, aren't you? And I was like, yeah, who says I can't? I mean, now I'm hey, self, what do you think about this being your hours for work? But I think that that's an opportunity for us. Companies like Bus Stop Mamas are an opportunity for us to look at the workplace differently. And what she does is she finds companies who are hiring and she job places and connects moms with these companies that are looking for, contract workers or different things like that. She just hired a CFO for a company. So I think we look at it in the aspect of now, like we get to recreate what this looks like. We could look at it as a negative, but we could look at it as a positive too. Yeah. So I look at it as an opportunity for change.
Absolutely. And it just, I can't speak for what the tone is for everybody that has had to have that decision for the mother to stay home. I mean, it can be comprised of so many things, right? Like she makes a secondary income, or she wants to, even if she did make the second, like more income, she wants to be home. I don't know that dynamic, but I think there are ways for people to, eventually get curious about the online space and get curious on how they can create an income for themselves or supporting another business, but still stay online. It's going to be a shit show to get out of this place where that divide is even greater now. And I even think about my kids and their learning ability, and the kids that do not have, like, you think of the families that have, 5 kids at home, but the top 3 kids, the older kids, are helping with getting the younger kids in another place because their parents are off to work. There's such a gap that we haven't.
Or their parents don't speak English, or can't translate the homework, so they don't have help at home.
Ability to get online and understand and keep up with everything. So there's going to be a lot of things coming out of this that is going to rely on women, and unfortunately there's not a lot of resources, and there's it just feels that like we're just going to have to really rally around each other and get the support. Really,
I think you just said that, like, community is going to be so important, and how do we create that in a virtual space where we feel so disconnected right now? Yeah.
When we are in physical space, my favorite thing to teach my moms is having this productive play date. So if you and your school age kid or younger are together. It doesn't take two moms to watch these two kids. Like one mom pops out and does her thing for an hour or 2 hours. And that's what I did in the beginning. We didn't always have a nanny. We had a nanny here and there, but after Marina passed, I couldn't find like my person anymore. And so I did the best of what I could. But one of the things I loved with my friend V was our kids would get together and I'd be like, go walk your dog or do whatever you need to do. I got this. And then I was able to do what I needed to do. So we are going to have to lean on each other a lot to be able to get through this next phase. If a mama is trying to get her business off the ground or get a job or what have you, it's going to rely on the community for sure. There's no denying that. And I wish more people would ask for help. You know, there's one of the things that I love to think about is just like, just because you don't ask for help doesn't mean you're strong. And just because you don't accept help, what did I say? Or just because you ask for help doesn't mean you're weak. And just because you don't accept help doesn't mean you're strong, right? So I think it's just letting go of that ego of saying, I got this all, and saying, I need help. And how can I help you? How can you help me? And it's going to be women for women, I think, to solve this problem.
Well, I always say you put moms in charge and we'll figure this shit out real quickly.
For sure.
Because we just look at it from a different perspective of like, what is it that every child needs, not just our own. And I think that that's a good space for us to think about too. So we have the tendency, I think, in our culture to be very, you know, I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to focus on what I need to do. I can't ask for help. I can't help other people. I just got to put my head down and go forward. And that's not how we're all going to come out of anything, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So Annie, where can people hang out with you? Where can they find out more about what you do from a community building standpoint, as well as a coaching standpoint?
Sure. So Avenue Mama across all platforms is where I kind of wear my coaching hat, I want to say. And Annie Vovan is just kind of more my lifestyle banter. And I think what was really interesting was I recently carved out, I was doing photography and I still do a little bit of photography, but I carved that out of my online space because I think in this year I've really been able to, again, just be in that space or decided to use my voice in a way that 2 years ago I wouldn't have. And so I would invite everyone into that conversation of like, how can we contribute to the nonsense that's happening in the world, to the nonsense of inequality, to the nonsense of equal rights for all that stuff. And so if you're interested in just my coaching part, I would say Avenue Mama is where you'll find that. But who I am day in, day out is at Annie Vovan.
Yeah.
But I think, I'm the same wherever I am. Even in Avenue Mama, there's always the flavor of what I stand for and who I represent. But I do have a hybrid coaching program that's coming out end of April. And I have a podcast that, as you know, has not been up for a couple months. And that's okay. But everything is at Avenue Mama.
Yeah. And that is the beauty of being able to create in your own space is it's on your own time and your own terms. And it's whatever you want to do. And I know that whenever you decide to do it again and get behind the microphone, that you're going to provide such a great amount of wisdom and love, just genuinely your spirit. Folks that are listening, like Annie is what Annie is. She keeps it real and straight. And I'm just so grateful that we are in connection and community together. And I'm grateful for you.
Thank you, friend. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thank you for joining us.
Of course.